Hello, I'm Franco Luna, PumaPodcast. You're listening to Teka Teka News. Balitang thinking, hindi breaking. In this episode,
Government media comes first. Malaking bahagi po kasi ng aming vision ay to attack fake news or false or deliberately misleading information. Sa ngayon po, yung termino na fake news ay mahirap i-define. Marami pong iba't ibang mga definitions nito.
pag-usapan natin ang mga plano ni Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles ukol sa pagbabahagi ng impormasyon. The Senate Committee on Public Information and Mass Media recently held its first hearing this year. That's when Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles said they intend to push back against fake news.
Minsan, kung mag-a-attempt tayong i-regulate ito, kailangan binabalanse natin doon sa constitutional guarantee of free speech. So, ang primary purpose namin, bukod sa yung direct information pertaining to the public or to government, ay yung pagtataas ng level ng public discussion tungkol sa ating mga public interest matters.
But the bigger question is, who gets to define fake news? These days, people throw around the term so casually that it's become the favorite weapon of government officials who don't like the coverage about them. As we know, Cruz-Angeles was formerly a pro-Marcos vlogger before she was appointed by President Bongbong Marcos. He himself had a lot to say about fake news and the mainstream media over the campaign period. Here he is over 1PH in March of this year.
Ano yung fake news namin? Para sa akin, ako nabibiktima ng fake news. Dahil ang dami-dami sinasabi sa akin, hindi naman talaga totoo. Pina-fact check lang nila yung one side of the story. Hindi nila, yung kabila, hindi nila ginagawa. Kami, biktima kami dyan. At maraming pina-fact check ako na sinasabi, hindi totoo yung sinabi ko.
So now, Trixie says government media has to come first.
Inuuna din po natin ipahayag ng ating mga government stations, PTV, broadcast services, at saka ang ating Philippine News Agency, nang ito po ay magpahayag ahead of the other private broadcasts or publications para yung storya ay nakokontrol dahil government information na ito ay lumalabas ng objective. It intends to sustain the credibility of government networks bilang primary news source ng ating publiko.
Also, under the Office of the Press Secretary's One Messaging Policy, the communication and information units of the government agencies in the executive branch will be placed on the front line of information. Basically, government spokespersons now have a group chat, so to speak.
Sa gayong paraan, alam namin lahat ng mga ahensya sa gobyerno aware sa mga pangyayari sa ibang mga ahensya at na-minimize po ang disinformation, misinformation at maling impormasyon na lumalabas na posibleng mailabas ng iba't ibang ahensya gawa ng kakulangan ng pagkaugnay.
None of this is new. State media the world over, even in first world countries, naturally toe the government line. I should add, not just toe, but actively push state propaganda sometimes. What's different this time around is how much power and resources government media is being given. In August, the Malacanang Press Corps, or the MPC, a group composed of mainstream media journalists accredited to cover the palace, questioned why Cruz-Angeles' office denied the application request of Hataw reporter Rose Novenario. The MPC also urged the Office of the Press Secretary to communicate properly clear-cut rules and grounds for the denial of accreditation for its members. Here's what Cruz-Angeles had to say when senators asked about it at the same hearing.
Dalawa po ang accreditation processes dun sa Malacanang Press Corps. Isa po yung pag-accredit ng Press Corps mismo at pangalawa yung doon sa Office of the Press Secretary. Dito po, Sa reporter na ng hataw, mayroon po kasi siyang violation. Ito po ay yung kanyang pag-insulto sa ilang mga kasamahan namin sa Office of the Press Secretary, mga opisyales, pero ang ginamit niyang salita ay anti-LGBTQ na salita. Violation po ito ng Safe Spaces Act.
But the press secretary didn't actually give proof of this and merely cited reports submitted to her office. In response, Senator Raffy Tulfo, himself a former broadcaster, asked this.
Pwede ho bang matanong kung anong klaseng violation yon at anong klaseng pang-insulto ang sinabi nitong si Hataw reporter, si Rose Novenario ng Hataw.
So it is media relations na nagpapadala sa akin ng recommendation. According to them, inirereklamo niya supposedly yung actions ng ating undersecretary or assistant secretary at tinawag yung itong mga baklang to, among other things. Hindi ko po hawak yung buong kaso kasi nga po hindi ako nasabihan na ito po ay matatanong.
It's also worth mentioning that this came on the heels of another issue. The alternative news site Bulatlat was ordered blocked less than 2 weeks before the Marcos administration entered office after ex-National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon Jr. cited terrorist connections and the controversial anti-terror law. The block came despite the news site not being designated by the anti-terror law or even facing any legal action by the Philippine government. Here's what Bulatlat managing editor Len Olea had to say about the move over One News The Chiefs.
Wala po kaming charges na kinakaharap. Wala kaming alam as of now na kasto na isinampalaban sa amin. Parang marites lang, di ba, na naglista lang sila ng 27 websites at sinabing ganun, na walang kahit isang ebidensyang pinipresent. And now they're telling us na, oh, you can avail of legal remedies. Parang nakakagalit naman talaga yun.
As of press time, the website of Bulatlat is accessible once more. That's after they posted a cash bond of 100,000 pesos and armed themselves with lawyers. That's asking a lot of a tiny news outlet, but it says it will continue fighting what it calls state-sponsored censorship. And that was today's episode of Teka Teka. Again, I'm Franco Luna. This episode was edited by Presh Capistrano and produced by Kat Ventura. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or two. And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka and PumaPodcast wherever you listen. Lastly, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. This really helps us get the word out about our show. We're excited to build our community with you, and it looks like we'll be able to meet for events real soon. So if you want to stay in the loop, please go to PumaPodcast.com and subscribe to our newsletter. Thanks for listening.